Okay, so you want to own a casino. Picture the chandeliers first. Thousands of hand-cut crystals throwing red and gold light across a carpet nobody has ever seen you vacuum. Picture the sound. 100 slot machines chiming in a key that isn't quite music but works on the brain anyway. Picture the private room behind the unmarked door, where a handful of regulars play baccarat for stakes that would buy a house, and where you, the owner, are the only person in the room who gets richer no matter who's losing. That is the fantasy. For about 2.5 years, it was completely real for one confident group of investors in Atlantic City who built a 47-story tower on the beach, opened it to valet lines around the block, and then watched it close for good, sold for a fraction of what it cost to build. The industry those investors bought into pulled in $78.72 billion in gross gaming revenue in 2025 alone, according to the American Gaming Association. And yet in Pennsylvania, the paper license required to legally operate a casino can cost more than the casino itself is worth. So here is the question this entire story turns on. How does a business built on a guaranteed mathematical edge, on every table and every spin, still manage to bankrupt some of the most well-capitalized owners in America? And why does the real answer have almost nothing to do with the tables, the chips, or the odds at all? A casino is not one business. It is three, wearing the same red carpet. Door number one is the Nevada model, a privately held, state-licensed casino operating under a comparatively light regulatory tax on its gross gaming revenue, or GGR, the standard industry measure of what a casino keeps after paying out winners, but before taxes and operating costs. Nevada's Gaming Control Board collects a percentage fee that starts at 3.5% on the first $50,000 of monthly GGR, climbs to 4.5% on the next $84,000, and tops out at 6.75% on everything above that. Door number two is the heavily taxed regional model, licensed under jurisdictions like Pennsylvania, where a Category 4 satellite casino hands over 54% of its slot machine GGR to the state before it pays a single employee. That is not a rounding difference from Nevada's structure. That is an entirely different business wearing the same felt tables. Door number three belongs to tribal gaming, operating under the Federal Indian Gaming Regulatory Act on sovereign land, where casinos don't pay a state gaming tax at all. Tribal nations instead negotiate compacts with the state that typically substitute a negotiated revenue-sharing arrangement for a conventional tax, according to the National Indian Gaming Commission's own framework. 3 doors, 3 completely different math problems, and most headlines never bother to specify which one they are actually describing. Which door is a given headline actually describing? That single choice changes every number that follows it. This story follows door number 1 and door number 2, the commercial taxed casino model most owners actually buy into, because that is where the leverage, the debt, and the collapse waiting later in this story all live. The price of admission stacks in layers, and each one catches new owners off guard in turn. First, the building itself. A small standalone casino can be built for somewhere between $2 million and $5 million, according to industry cost breakdowns, slot machines and folding tables in a converted warehouse, nothing close to a resort. A mid-size regional casino with a real gaming floor and a modest hotel attached runs somewhere between $10 million and $20 million. And if the ambition is a genuine Las Vegas Strip integrated resort, the number stops behaving like a number at all. Fontainebleau, Las Vegas cost $3.7 billion to complete, and Resorts World Las Vegas, the most expensive resort ever built on the Strip, cost $4.3 billion. Sound expensive? That's before a single card has been dealt. Second, the license, and this is where new owners get their first real surprise. In Nevada, the base application fee is a modest $1,000, non-refundable, but that fee doesn't cover the actual cost of getting approved. Nevada's Gaming Control Board bills applicants directly for the full, uncapped cost of their own background investigation, hourly agent rates, travel, lodging, and unlike the flat $1,000 application fee, that final number is never published in advance and isn't known until the investigation is finished. Pennsylvania charges outright instead. A Category 1 or 2 casino license costs a flat $50 million, and even the smaller Category 4 satellite license requires a minimum bid of $7.5 million. New Jersey structures it as a two-step deposit, at least $100,000 upfront, credited toward a total initial license fee of $200,000 plus $500 a year for every slot machine on the floor. Third, the gaming floor itself. A standard slot machine costs somewhere between $14,000 and $18,000 to buy outright, with premium cabinets running past $24,000, while a professional blackjack or roulette table runs somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000. Some owners skip the upfront hardware cost entirely through a participation lease, where the manufacturer installs the machine for free and takes a cut of everything it earns, commonly landing somewhere between a 50-50 and a 30-70 split in the manufacturer's favor. Add the hotel tower, the kitchens, and the surveillance infrastructure behind the eye in the sky, and a new owner has committed enormous sums before a single chip touches the felt. Here's the trap that catches almost every new casino owner. The license is not a one-time cost, it is a subscription, and the payment is due every single month for as long as the doors stay open. In Nevada, that tiered percentage fee of 3.5%, 4.5%, and 6.75% doesn't disappear after the ribbon gets cut. It recurs against monthly GGR forever, filed by the 15th or the state starts charging interest. In New Jersey, the number is simpler and harsher. An 8% tax on gross casino revenue, plus an additional 1.25% investment alternative tax, according to the state's Division of Gaming Enforcement. In Pennsylvania, a Category 4 casino hands over 54% of its slot revenue before covering a single payroll check, a rate so steep it behaves less like a government fee and more like a silent senior partner who happens to own the majority stake in the slot floor specifically. Then there is the credit sitting quietly in the private room from the very start of this story. Casinos extend high-stakes players a marker, a short-term line of credit issued at the table that functions like a casino's own self-issued IOU. Now, here's where it gets dangerous. That credit is backed by nothing but the player's signature and reputation, and an unpaid marker becomes uncollectible debt sitting directly on the casino's own books. Every comp handed out compounds the exposure further. Casinos calculate the theoretical win, or the theo, the amount a player is mathematically expected to lose given their average bet and hours played, and hand a portion of it back as a comp, a complimentary room, meal, or show ticket, typically somewhere between 0.1% and a full percentage point of total handle, the entire amount wagered before any payouts. Small on paper. Add the surveillance system behind every ceiling dome, the compliance staff watching for anti-money laundering violations, and insurance on a building full of cash, and the fixed costs show up every single day whether the tables are full or empty. The house always wins. The regulator always wins first. The revenue stacks in layers too, obvious ones first. Table games generate their win off a house edge, the built-in statistical advantage that guarantees the casino profits over time regardless of any single night's outcome, and it varies sharply by game. Blackjack under liberal, optimal play rules carries a house edge of just 0.28%. Baccarat runs 1.06% on the banker bet and 1.24% on the player bet. Craps sits around 1.36% to 1.41%, and roulette runs 2.70% on a single zero wheel or 5.26% on the American double zero version, according to house edge data compiled by Wizard of Odds. Small percentages applied to an enormous handle, night after night. Which layer actually pays the electric bill, though? Not the one most players are watching most closely. The second layer, and the real workhorse of the entire industry, is the slot floor. Slot machines carry a far wider hold. The share of every dollar wagered the machine is designed to keep somewhere between 2% and 15%, and a standard machine is expected to win somewhere between $150 and $250 a day, call it $200 on an average day. According to the American Gaming Association, traditional gaming, meaning slots and tables combined, generated $50.94 billion of the industry's $78.72 billion total in 2025. The third layer is newer and growing faster than anything else on this list. Sports betting brought in $16.96 billion in 2025, up 22.8% from the year before, and iGaming, online casino games played on a phone or laptop, brought in $10.74 billion, up 27.6%. Read that again. The fastest-growing revenue layer in the entire industry doesn't require a single physical chip, dealer, or square foot of carpet. The fourth layer is small enough to sound like a joke and large enough to be real money. Unredeemed slot vouchers, known in the industry as TITO, ticket in, ticket out, the cashless system that replaced coin trays. Nevada gamblers let $22 million in cash-out tickets simply expire in a single fiscal year, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and under state law, 75% of that money, roughly $16.5 million, goes straight to the state, with the casino keeping the rest. So far, a casino sounds like a machine that has found a way to profit from literally everything, including the money players forget to pick up on their way out the door. Now, here's the other side of the ledger, because an industry sitting on this much mathematically guaranteed advantage should never go bankrupt, and it does, constantly, which means the edge itself was never the whole story. Here's where it gets interesting. If the house edge alone made casinos safe bets for owners, nobody would ever lose one, and yet owners lose them constantly, to debt, to tax structure, to a building that costs more to keep open than it earns. The first layer of the real answer is the license itself. Because states cap how many casino licenses exist in a given jurisdiction, the license stops behaving like a government form and starts behaving like a scarce tradable asset, largely independent of how well the casino underneath it actually performs. A Pennsylvania Category 1 license costs $50 million to obtain new, but a license already in operation, attached to an existing customer base and an existing building, is worth meaningfully more on paper, precisely because no new ones are being issued. Owners aren't just buying a casino, they're buying a permission slip the government has deliberately made rare. A 30-year Treasury bond pays more than many regional casinos' return in a genuinely rough year, with none of the debt, the tax exposure, or the annual background check. But even the license isn't the deepest layer of this, and here is the part nobody tells you going in. The deepest layer is not gaming-related at all, and we'll get to it later, because that's where a genuinely enormous share of the real money in this industry actually hides. What can be said now is this: the operating businesses that look the most vulnerable on paper, thin margins, brutal tax rates, debt-financed construction, are often owned by entities that have quietly separated themselves from the one thing that's actually expensive, the real estate the casino sits on. A casino operator drowning in a 54% tax rate on its slot floor can still be sitting on an asset worth billions, as long as it isn't the one holding the mortgage on the building anymore. The house edge is not the business. The license is not even the business, not really. Something underneath both of them is, and it doesn't involve a single card being dealt. Remember the 47-story tower from the very beginning of this story? Its name was Revel, and it opened on the Atlantic City beachfront in April of 2012 after Morgan Stanley poured $1.25 billion into building it, 1,400 hotel rooms, a private beach club, and enough chandeliers to make the fantasy feel completely real. It was, at the time, the single largest private investment ever made in Atlantic City, and the state government believed in it enough to promise $261 million in tax credits to help get it open. The birth was enormous. The peak barely happened at all. Within 1 quarter, Morgan Stanley wrote off $932 million of its own investment and walked away before the building was even finished. And a consortium of hedge funds stepped in to refinance the project with $1.15 billion spread across 15 to 20 separate lenders just to get it across the finish line. Sound like a rescue? It was a delay. By January of 2013, less than a year after opening, Revel was pulling in less than $8 million a month in revenue inside a resort designed to require many multiples of that just to break even. The decline moved fast. Revel filed for its first bankruptcy on March 25, 2013, restructured, and filed for a second bankruptcy roughly 14 months later. The death came on September 2, 2014. The doors closed for good, and Revel was auctioned off for $110 million, a building that had cost $2.4 billion to build, selling for a little more than 4 cents on every capital dollar that had gone into it. The afterlife was just as brutal for the city around it. Revel's closure, alongside the same-year closures of Showboat and Trump Plaza, eliminated roughly 5,900 casino jobs, close to 20% of Atlantic City's entire casino workforce in a single year, according to Forbes's reporting on the collapse. Revel had a mathematically guaranteed house edge on every single table and every single machine inside it, the exact same structural advantage every other casino in America runs on. It still lost just over 95 cents of every dollar invested in it. Read that again. The edge was never the problem. The debt, the tax structure, and the building itself were. So if the edge was never the problem, what was? Here is the payoff to the question this entire story has been building toward. Why do the smartest, best capitalized owners in gaming keep winning even when the casino itself is a mediocre business wrapped in brutal tax rates? Because increasingly, they don't actually own the casino building at all. They own the company that owns the building, and they lease the operating business back to themselves or to someone else entirely under what's called a triple net lease, an arrangement where the tenant, not the landlord, covers the property taxes, insurance, and maintenance on top of rent. The mechanism is called a sale-leaseback. An operator sells its real estate to a landlord, often a specialized real estate investment trust, and immediately leases the same building back so operations continue uninterrupted, while ownership of the dirt itself changes hands permanently. VC Properties, one of the largest players in this exact space, holds 93 experiential real estate assets, including 54 gaming properties, spanning 127 million square feet and more than 60,000 hotel rooms, and generated $3.85 billion in revenue in fiscal year 2024, according to its own investor disclosures, almost entirely from contractual rent with built-in escalators rather than a single hand of blackjack. VC even holds 33 acres of undeveloped land adjacent to the Las Vegas Strip, banked and appreciating, doing nothing except existing in one of the most valuable zip codes on Earth. Here's where it gets interesting for the operator, not just the landlord. Rent is due whether the slot floor wins or loses. Remember the theoretical win from the comps breakdown, the number every casino lives and dies by on the gaming floor? None of that math applies once the building itself becomes the asset. VC collects its rent check regardless of anyone's theo, anyone's hold percentage, or anyone's rough quarter. Casinos don't own buildings anymore. Buildings own casinos, collecting rent from the operator for decades whether the slot floor has a great year or a terrible one, insulated from the house edge, the tax rate, and the debt that sank Revel. Now, scale that. The real estate underneath America's casino industry has quietly become one of the most reliable annuity businesses in commercial real estate, and it has almost nothing to do with the tables at all. Picture a mid-size Pennsylvania Category 3 casino with 600 slot machines on the floor, a concrete, ordinary operation, nothing close to a strip resort. Great year. Each machine wins roughly $230 a day, a strong but realistic figure for a well-run floor, generating just over $50.3 million in gross slot revenue across the year. After Pennsylvania's 34% slot tax, the casino keeps roughly $33.2 million. Subtract roughly $18 million in annual operating costs, payroll, surveillance, comps, utilities, insurance, a figure that for a floor this size typically falls somewhere between $15 million and $20 million, plus somewhere between $2 million and $3 million in debt service on the original construction loan. Call it $2.5 million, and the property nets somewhere around $12.7 million. Rough year. The same 600 machines, but each one wins closer to $165 a day instead of $230, a swing well within the normal range for slot performance. Gross slot revenue falls to roughly $36.1 million. After the same 34% tax, the casino keeps about $23.9 million. And after the exact same fixed costs, net income falls to somewhere around $3.4 million. Read that again. Nothing changed about the building, the tax rate, the license, or the debt. One number, the average daily win per machine, moved by less than $70 a day, and the difference in what the owner actually takes home is over $9 million. That is the volatility sitting underneath a business that looks, from a customer's side of the felt, completely predictable. Great year, rough year, same edge, same license, same 600 machines, and a 9-figure swing in fortunes driven by a number most gamblers never think about twice. Picture the chandeliers one more time, thousands of hand-cut crystals throwing red and gold light across that same carpet. Somewhere underneath it, underneath the tables, underneath the slot floor that never sleeps, sits the actual asset that made someone rich, and it was never the cards, the dice, or the wheel. The tables were always just the reason to build the building. The chandeliers were always just the reason to buy the land. The casino was never really the product. The real estate underneath it was. If you want to see how the same math plays out inside a different kind of institution, that video is on your screen now.